And one thing that I'm seeing more and more here at these auctions is a lot of independent dealers that are actually selling more of their cars. What does that tell me? That tells me that a lot of these car dealers are actually very, very, very weak. And I can see it just at my car dealership. So the cars I sell, you know what I sell, $5,000 and under. We've been weak. I've put many videos out over the last 6 months. I've made $0 in the last 6 months. It's been very brutal. I've never been able to say that while I've worked in the car market, while I've owned a car dealership for the last 14 years. There's never been a 6 month span where I've made $0. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. So a lot of these other car dealers are going through the same kind of thing. If $5,000 and under cars are sitting longer, if we're having a hard time making money on those cars, you can only imagine the mid-tier dealers, which makes up a majority of the dealerships right now in the car market, what they're going through. All these dealers that I'm talking to, they're coming up to me, Brandon, are you busy? Brandon, are you selling stuff? Brandon, are you slow? Or did you pick up? How many cars are you selling last month? I get these questions every single week. It probably for a big reason, because they watch a lot of the videos that I actually put out. But two, they know the kind of cars that I sell, and they know that my market is going to get hit first, it's going to get hit the worst, and when the market's good, my dealership rocks. Like but in 2019, let me just give you an example of what we did in 2019 versus what we're doing right now. 2019, we were averaging about 90 cars a month. That's how many cars we were selling a month. That's crazy to think about. I wish I would have been able to get back into the perspective and just feel what a normal month, being 90 cars a month, felt like. That was just normal then. But now, like, a normal month for us is like 50 to 60 cars a month. And that's on off season. During tax time, we do a lot better than that. But it's just crazy to think about, just in not that long a time, just a 5-year span, 6-year span. We went from we sold almost double the amount of cars back then that we're selling right now on our lot. And it's not like we're buying anything different. It's just the availability of cars that are out there. And I talk about how it's getting better, and I can see it's getting better. Prices are coming down. The quality of cars is going up. But still, we are nowhere near. It's such a far cry from the amount of vehicles that were being pumped through the system back in 2019. Back in 2019, the whole car market, the game was volume. So what you did, new car manufacturers, volume. New car franchise dealers, volume. That's where you made your money. You didn't make your money off the sale of a car. You made your money off the manufacturer actually giving you money for hitting your sales goals. That's how they make money. They didn't make any money off the front end. In a lot of cases, a lot of these new franchise dealers, they actually lost money on the front end of cars. When I'm talking about front end, when they actually sell a car, there's no gross profit on the actual car. How they would make their money is off back end products. F&I, they'll sell them gap insurance, they'll sell them warranties, they'll sell them just their add-ons, any kind of pack that they have on these cars, and then they would also make money on the service side of these vehicles. So that's long gone. What we've experienced here in the car market, and the volumes are just not there. I can give you an example of difference in volume. So there's a big auction that I've just started going back to again, because we have to buy more cars, because we have tax time that we have to load up for us right around the corner. And back in 2019. They would run like 45 to 5,000 cars every single week. What are they running now? About 2,500 every single week. Still a lot of cars that they're moving through the system, but this is a very large auction. They have 16 lanes, and they are at 50% of how many cars they were selling on a weekly basis back in 2019 till now. It's another 50% drop. My car dealership, about a 50% drop of what we were doing back in 2019 versus what we're doing right now. And it's been very difficult for us and a lot of these car dealers that are bringing a lot of their cars now to auction to dump them. So just to go back to the worry that I see from a lot of these mid-level dealers, well, all these cars are right here. This lane, the next lane over, and then this lane over here. These are all independent dealers. Why would an independent dealer bring a car to an auction? Well, it's because they can't sell it, or there's something wrong with the car that they don't want to fix. And in a lot of cases, you didn't see this in this kind of quantity when we had the availability of cars down. You wouldn't see that back in 2019. What's happening right here is a lot of these car dealers that have paid way too much for a lot of these cars, well, they're not able to sell them, and then they're on floor plans, so they have to pay interest for their cars. So they can't just have cars sitting on their lot for days and days and days and months and months and months, because that ends up costing them a lot of money. So what do? They have to raise cash. They have to raise it real quick. So they bring it to these auctions and then they dump it. So one thing that's very frustrating about a lot of these dealers that have to do that, they don't move prices like I do. So we don't like to have stale inventory. Even though I'm not financing any of my cars, I pay cash for all my cars. We have a very strict system where, okay, we'll try to mark the car up and we'll try to hit a home run on it right after we buy it from auction. If the market tells us that, okay, this car is priced too high, meaning we don't get any leads on it, we don't get any test drives, we won't sell the car, then we have to then aggressively lower our prices. So after every 2 weeks, we drop our price by $500. And a lot of these car dealers, they don't do that. What they want to do is they price it as a home run, and they'll keep it for a month. And if it doesn't sell for a month, well, they'll just keep the same price because they are not doing volume anymore. They're not being aggressive on their pricing. So it gets a lot of these car dealers, like what we're seeing behind me, that gets them stuck. And they'll go through a time period where they don't sell a lot of cars over 3 months, and then they have to come up with this cash. Keep in mind, a lot of these car dealers that are borrowing money for these cars, the reason why they're borrowing money is because they don't have it. So if they have to come up with these payments that they have to pay interest on a lot of the vehicles that they have sitting on their lot, well, that instant cash is something that they need, and the only way for them to make instant cash is by dumping cars at auction, because every day that we come to auction, we buy cars, we write a check for that car that day. The seller that we buy that car from, they get that check that day. And in a lot of cases, they can't do it on their car. I get a lot of questions saying, well, why don't car dealers just lower the prices on their lot and sell it to a customer really quick? Customers are slow. I mean, in a lot of cases, you could lower a car by 50%. It doesn't mean that it's going to sell that day. You have to have customers come in a lot of cases with these more expensive cars. You have car dealers that have to deal with banks. So a lot of these sales don't happen just over one day. If they have to get the customer to go to the bank, get their loan, if the car lot's not hooked up with their own kind of financing, then that quick cash that they need to make their floor plans, to make their lenders satisfied, if they need it quickly, and a lot of these car dealers, they're very reactionary. So if they don't prepare for payments that they have coming up, it's like, oh, I'll sell a car tomorrow, it'll happen. Well, the car doesn't get sold. We'll wait next day. Oh, I'll sell a car tomorrow. And then all these days start turning into weeks. And then all of a sudden their lenders are calling them and say, hey, we know that you got these 3 cars that have been sitting on your lot for 120 days. And we need to know something about them. We need to get these things paid off. That car dealer doesn't have the money. Well, I've talked to a lot of these floor plan reps, these lenders, and what they say is they go and they'll help these car dealers actually sell their cars. What does that mean? Well, they go pick them up and they bring them to auction and they dump them. They basically repo them off these car dealer lots. It sounds crazy because usually when you think about repo, it's a consumer that's getting their car repoed, right? No, not in this case. In a lot of the cases, especially small used car dealers, if they're not wise with their money, they can get their cars repoed, and then in a lot of cases they can actually lose a lot of their financing, a lot of their floor plan accounts, and it's a big struggle for a lot of these car dealers. And this is what happens year in, year out for a lot of car dealers, and that's why you see, I don't know if you notice this, but I always pay attention to a bunch of small car dealerships that pop up on the side of highways. And it's usually they'll pop up, they'll open, they'll have a new place, and about 3 months later, in a lot of cases, you'll see them close down. A lot of them get in trouble with a lot of their lending. They can't pay it off. They figure out, okay, the market's not as good. It's not a rosy market. Like, you feel like you just go buy cars, wholesale price, clean them up a little bit, put them on your lot, and people will come buy them. It doesn't work like that. It's not that easy. If it was that easy, you probably wouldn't see me on YouTube. I probably wouldn't have a car lot right now. I'd be retired somewhere in the middle of the woods and wouldn't be working anymore. It's not that easy. And in a lot of cases, we probably don't make anywhere close to as much money as you think we make. One thing that's very positive for the market right now, I feel like, is that we're seeing newer, better quality cars actually making their way to the auction. Now, normally I wouldn't pay attention to that kind of stuff because I buy cars that are $5,000 and under. That's what my clientele is buying from me. That's what I like to buy. That's what I do, right? That's what I built my car dealership on. But since I've started making a lot of these YouTube videos and paying attention more to the market and the higher end of stuff for you guys, I've kept track of the amount of vehicles, the higher quality, newer cars that are actually coming to these auctions. And the thing about it, over the last 3 years, we've had none of these cars actually make their way. What's been happening over the last 3 years? Well, we went through a dry spell of these manufacturers not being able to get enough product to these new car dealers. So a lot of these new car dealers, how they live is actually selling new stock. From a Toyota franchise dealer, they want to sell a lot of brand new Toyotas, and then they get money from the manufacturer for hitting sales goals. This is where they make a ton of money on the front end. Now, most of their money is going to come from service, most of their money is going to come from back-end products, but none of that stuff gets to happen unless they actually are moving through a lot of this new product. And they didn't have enough of it. So what did they do? Well, in a lot of cases, a lot of these dealers became glorified used car dealers, and all of the trade-ins that they were getting in for the limited amount of new product that they had, well, they were keeping it. I even saw instances over the last 2 or 3 years where dealerships were keeping the kind of stuff that I buy. They had a 2005 Nissan Altima with almost 200,000 miles. That doesn't belong on it was on a Ford lot. That doesn't belong on a brand new franchise Ford lot, right? That needs to come to a small used car dealer like myself. And this is what hurt a lot of small used car dealers just like myself. And that's why the prices at these auctions went through the absolute moon. Is because the amount of vehicles that were actually making their way to auction was so low, because a lot of these franchises, on top of it, they weren't getting a lot of trade-ins, because they just didn't have the transactions happening because new car manufacturers weren't getting the vehicles. But on top of that, the ones that they were getting, they were just keeping for themselves. And we're seeing a reversion back to the mean, back to what was back in 2019. It's not anywhere close to where it needs to be. Don't get me wrong on that, but we're seeing progress in that, where we're seeing 2- and 3-year-old trucks with only 60,000 miles actually coming into the system. That's what I like to see, because the more that those trade-ins, they're willing to let them go because they have plenty of new car inventory available to them, well, the more transactions that can happen on the auction side. It's good for small used car dealers like myself because it can bring prices down. It can also bring more inventory that we can be more picky about buying. The last few years, our loss rate has gone way up because we've had to gamble on more cars that we didn't want to buy. But now we can be a little bit more picky, buy stuff that we think is ready when we actually buy it at that auction, because there's just more cars available to us to be able to look at and purchase and sift through. And then it helps the auctions too. Auctions need transactions to happen. If new franchise dealers aren't bringing trade-ins here, well, there's nothing for the auctions to sell. So in a lot of cases, these auction owners can get very frustrated if these franchise dealers are holding on to their inventory and selling it themselves, because the only way that these auctions make money is from getting a buyer fee and getting a seller fee from a transaction actually happening here at this auction. So a lot of these auctions took a big hit over the last few years because the amount of inventory was way down. And that's got to be very beneficial for them right now, where trade-ins are actually making their way to these auctions. And then it's good for the consumer, because the more transactions that happen in the car market, the velocity of money that's moving through the car market, the lower that prices can go. And we're already seeing this on the used car side of things. New cars, not so much. Manufacturers, they have a lock on that. Now we're seeing a lot of these manufacturers that are struggling right now, so that should get better as time goes on. But right now, it's a bigger benefit for used cars, used car dealers, used car customers, and used car prices. We can see it right now in the data than it is for these new car dealers. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe, like it, leave me a comment down, and let me know what you think. See you on the next one.